Bonus episode time, folks. The Ironbound Vampire. For those of you who just happen to stumble across this video and aren't a regular viewer of Shameless Cashgrab, the reason this is a bonus episode for Season 3 is because this movie was in fact listed on the back of the case for the Mill Creek Entertainment multi-movie set that I had chosen for Season 3 of this show. But, although this movie was listed there, the movie wasn't actually on any of the discs. So I bought it separately, and I'm talking about it separately. It will not be included in the rankings for the Season 3 wrap-up episode, which is coming very soon. So here we are, The Ironbound Vampire from 1997, or 98, depending on where you look. One site has it as 1994 for some reason. Unlike my previous bonus episode, this one's going to be partially scripted. Like, less than half, definitely, but... we'll start with a plot summary, since this one's definitely not as famous as the movie I covered for the bonus episode last season. But courtesy of IMDb, and I'm just going to read this straight through, and I'm going to let you know now that English was probably not this writer's first language. So, just keep that in mind, and be nice. A World War I U.S. soldier is cursed by a vampire, and when he returns home to his hometown of Newark, New Jersey, he tries to stay alive by his daily consummation for blood. Nearly 80 years later, a dogged police detective seeking material to write a book about vampires teams up with a local journalist. Pause. She's actually a doctor, but okay. Back to the summary. They try to find this mysterious person whom the press has dubbed the Ironbound Vampire due to his MO of leaving murder victims dry of blood. Trust me, that summary makes this movie sound more interesting than it is. But before I get into the movie proper, I want to talk a little bit about the concept of the so bad it's good movie. I've touched on this here and there over the course of this show, but some people might not entirely be aware of what that means. The thing is, there really is no universal metric by which one can measure so bad it's good. If that were the case, it would actually be pretty easy to make a so bad it's good movie on purpose. In reality, we all know too well that trying to make that kind of movie on purpose, more often than not, fails. Off the top of my head, I can think of only one movie that was intentionally designed to be, super cheesy that really worked. And that was a little movie from Canada called Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter. More often than not, when someone tries to intentionally recapture the kind of oeuvre of your Ed Woods or your Tommy Wiseau's, your Troll 2's, or your Battlefield Earth's, I would just say that Battlefield Earth is straight up bad, but for some people, while there are some movies that are generally agreed upon to be part of the So Bad It's Good canon, some of which you can find in a book called So Bad It's Good. I'm going to put a cover up on the screen right now. I recommend it. I also recommend its sequel called So Bad It's Good 2 Electric Boogaloo. It's a good book, so I forgive them for the incredibly lazy joke. But, you have your Planet 9 from Outer Space, The Room, Troll 2, which I already mentioned. A Hard Ticket to Hawaii shows up on a lot of those lists. But, there are also those movies that some people would consider so bad it's good that don't really make it onto big lists like this one, like when magazines or books come out talking about so bad it's good movies. One of my personal favorites? Mission Impossible 2. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but the short version is basically, I love how the movie sort of plays like a parody of John Woo's tropes when it was directed by John Woo. But, okay, my point, though, is Ironbound Vampire, I think that's what they were going for. I think the makers of this film were trying to make a so bad it's good movie on purpose. My evidence for this, the back of the DVD case, on screen about now-ish. If you can see there, you'll see in the text. If you can't read it, I'll read the relevant part to you. You don't need to read the whole thing, but... The Ironbound Vampire is an ambitious underground production that has the feel of a modern-day Edward Wood Jr. movie, and features special guest appearances by Wood cast veterans Dolores Fuller, Glenn or Glenda, and Conrad Brooks, Plan 9 from Outer Space. So, yeah, the makers of this film went out of their way to get two people connected with Ed Wood, like kind of one of the names in So Bad It's Good movies, in this. Now, you may recall that I mentioned that trying to do a So Bad It's Good movie on purpose tends to fail. And you guessed right, it failed here, too. There are a number of reasons. For instance, this movie was shot with the best filmmaking technologies of the 1980s. Unfortunately, it was filmed in 1997. I mean, I don't want to knock it too much for being an amateur production, but at the same time, it's kind of hard not to laugh at, like, some of the setups and how the cameras are framed, how shots are framed, and like, location shots and everything. It's just not good. And the pacing. Oh, good lord, the pacing. At one point, the movie stops so that two of the characters can watch another movie. It only goes on for about a minute, but I am dead serious here. The through line of the movie just stops so that two characters can just watch a totally different movie. And this serves no purpose. I didn't recognize the film, so it's not like a thematic kind of thing. It's not like... okay. This is an example of theming done stupid, but at least it's theming. So I'm going to cite it just because it's very simple. The third Michael Bay Transformers movie, which revealed that the character being voiced by Leonard Nimoy had turned bad. Early in the movie, characters are watching the Star Trek episode Mirror, Mirror. If you know anything about Star Trek, you get why that's an example. It's stupid, but it's an example. There seems to be no purpose to what movie these people are watching. My best guess is that they're watching another movie made by the same director. This is not to say there's nothing of value here. There was a vampire wedding sequence. Well, okay, it could have been good. The concept was certainly interesting. The blandness of the actors is what ultimately brings it down. Because in terms of concept, a vampire wedding, I mean, not like, vampires having a traditional wedding for some other faith or whatever, but I mean, this was like clearly designed to be a wedding for vampires. I feel like you could really do something good with that. This movie just didn't. Speaking of themes, there really doesn't seem to be much of a thematic reason to have the main vampire have been a World War I vet. I mean, setting aside the fact that the guy acts like a dude from the 90s, even in his flashback sequences, what few there are, it doesn't really have much of a bearing on the story at all. In fact, apart from the exposition, it doesn't really come up again towards the end. But I'm going to get to that really soon, because I'm jumping ahead to the nudity of the film. Yeah, time for tits counter, I didn't write it down, but it's more than 47 minutes in a 59-minute movie. A shocking amount of restraint for a schlock horror film. However, it's a scene that drags on for so long and accomplishes so little that I was able to listen to a third of an entire Vaporwave album while I watched it. I think I'll include the album in the show notes, too. It's a good one. If anything, I think listening to that music during the sex scene actually improved it. And then, shortly after this, after our main vampire, who has done surprisingly little in this film, he's captured, and he's being interrogated in an empty room in a factory. I mean, in a police interrogation room. Sure, that's what it's supposed to be, right? But during this, there's a throwaway line that brings up the World War I thing again, is that because the guy is a World War I veteran, the Veterans Administration considers his vampirism a wartime injury and wants to treat him as an injured veteran. I feel like there's an absurdist comedy idea there, but here it's just a badly delivered throwaway line. I think I'd honestly rather watch that movie about the Veterans Administration dealing with vets who got bitten by vampires. I think you could probably get something out of that. I'm not going to write it, because I know I'm not good enough to make something like that work. But, yeah, this movie. Oh god, they don't even show the decapitation. It's when the main vampire gets decapitated at the end. It's a sound effect. Ugh. The camera does not leave the face of the woman who kills him the entire time. You just hear the whisk, splat. I mean, you don't even see the body on the ground after. It's just, wow. I think even a bad fake decapitated head would have looked better, would have been better than nothing. Ugh. I really wish I could have found that Simpsons clip. The one that goes around sometimes. Phalis uses this one a bit. It's just like, I think, it's Homer. They're all watching a movie, and Homer goes, "That wasn't a story. That was just a bunch of things that happened." That is probably the best way to sum up this movie. Random thoughts I had while watching the film, you basically just heard them. This was so dull. I don't know if I would have made it the worst movie in the set had I put this in the rankings, but it was definitely the worst looking movie in the set. And, considering that some of the movies on the set were made in the 60s on a shoestring budget, that's saying something. And, at 59 minutes, this movie barely even counts as a movie. Never has something this short felt this long. Write your own sex jokes. I'm not really qualified. But, I don't want to be too mean, because I know it was an amateur production, but the acting is just so bad, and the camera work is bad, and the editing is bad, and the music is... Okay, the music is just mediocre, so that's actually an improvement over the rest of the movie. I mean, granted, not that my acting is any better, as anyone who's ever heard me on one of the Geologic Podcast anniversary episodes could tell you, but... yeah, Ironbound Vampire, man, I cannot recommend it on any level, unless you are just a super die-hard schlock cinema fan who wants to get it because two actors who worked with Ed Wood are in it, and one of them is only in it for, one sequence. I feel like I overpaid for this. How much did I pay for this? Okay, so after shipping, it was $7.89. Yeah, I definitely fucking overpaid for this.